Conference. I'm Amy Spong, the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer and SHPO Director. First, I'd like to ask you to join me in welcoming and extending a big thank you to our co-hosts, the City of Duluth, the Heritage Preservation Commission, and Visit Duluth. So planning this year's conference was no small feat, especially since we weren't sure just a few months ago we were going to be here all together in person or having another virtual conference. And thank you, our attendees, for showing up. It's really great to see all of you here. We have over 170 registrations, and more than half are staff and HPC members representing 31 certified local governments throughout Minnesota. The SHPO team and I are excited to be with you in this great city, to participate in the sessions and tours with you, and to listen to your stories of your community's preservation challenges and successes. There is one person, however, the SHPO team is missing at this year's event, our friend and colleague, Dennis Gardner. As many of you may know, Dennis passed away earlier this year. He served as SHPO's National Register historian since 2011 and was an accomplished author of several books, articles, and National Register nominations. He would talk about the National Register program and Minnesota's historic resources to anyone who would listen. One year, he gave 35 audience presentations across the state, and he explained to me that the point was simple: outreach. Letting others know there is an office called the SHPO that oversees preservation activities in the state. Additionally, through his talks, he would explain that there are historic places all around us. The SHPO team is carrying forward Dennis's wish to continue SHPO's outreach efforts by being here with you this week and in the several sessions that will highlight SHPO's activities and programs. Finally, before I invite our next speaker to kick off the official welcome, I want to recognize that Minnesota history spans at least 13,000 years. The vast majority of that time is represented by American Indian history alone. And from that perspective, our urban and rural-built environments are very recent. The state of Minnesota, as it's been known since 1858, is within the ancestral homelands of the Dakota and Ojibwe peoples. The 11 tribal nations in Minnesota are our partners in advocating for recognition and protection of the state's cultural resources, along with other native nations with historical connections here. Goals in the new statewide historic preservation plan seek to broaden that scope and equity of historic preservation through the identification and designation of more properties important to tribes and underrepresented communities, including traditional cultural properties, cultural landscapes, archaeological sites, and buildings and structures. I encourage you to be part of this effort, to work with us and others, building partnerships to advance preservation efforts across the state. Now, I am very pleased to introduce Alice Roberts-Davis, Commissioner for the Department of Administration, and our State Historic Preservation Officer since 2019. Commissioner?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, I'd like to welcome you to the 42nd Annual Preserve Minnesota Conference. It is really an amazing feeling to see all of us in a room together, and the SHPO team and their colleagues from around the state did an amazing job of keeping this conference alive virtually, but there is nothing like the feeling of seeing all of us in a room together. There would have been no comparison to doing the tour of the Glensheen Mansion virtually last night. And I would just say that I have waited 20 years to get into that Glensheen Mansion, and I know why. I waited now because I had the opportunity to do it with a group of historians and preservationists, and I saw it from a completely different perspective, learning about the wallpaper and the tile, and so that was a real treat. I am a recovering attorney, and so there's a tour of a jail today, and I'm excited about that. There's a discussion about diversity and inclusion and historical preservation, and so I say all that to say that there's something for everyone at this conference, and I'm sure that there's something for you, just like I found something for me. And so I'm very excited about everything that the SHPO team has pulled together for us to enjoy this week. While we've seen many changes over the past few years, the consistent factor for communities is the preservation of their incredible historic foundations to build better futures. And the SHPO team, along with your help, have put together a great document, which is the Minnesota Statewide Historic Preservation Plan. And that provides guidance to citizens and communities for protecting and preserving historic places while building partnerships, improving access to information, equity in preservation, economic benefits, sustainability, and climate resiliency. It is so exciting for me to experience the energy in this room of professionals and advocates with a commitment to using their past to improve their communities. But I know that the challenges that each of you face are real. The tools and incentives at your disposal are limited, including the sunsetting of the historic tax credit, which has been an invaluable tool in preserving historic structures, but in revitalizing neighborhoods and providing affordable housing. Even with preservation tools and protections in place, city leaders continue to be challenged in balancing additional environmental, social, economic needs of their communities. I've had conversations with city leaders and partners who must navigate those challenges and at times balance those with competing goals. I want you to know that SHPO and I hear you and understand your efforts in your communities, and that your historic preservation commissions, historical organizations, developers, contractors, and members of the public tackle each day in fostering historic preservation goals, and we have the same end goals in mind. The SHPO team and I are available, and we want to help you and guide you, and we want to be viewed as a resource for all of you. With that, I want to thank you again for being here, and I really look forward to talking with each of you today. And it is now my pleasure to turn the microphone over to my friend and the mayor of this beautiful city, Mayor Emily Larson.
Well, good morning. Wow, my kids. You don't have to get so close, y'all. Like last night, we do a lot of public speaking together. Commissioner, thank you so much. That is so generous, your introduction. I love meeting you in person. We have only known each other through a screen, and so thank you for being here. Thank you, all of you, for being here. This is a beautiful room. I looked at my schedule this morning and was planning to go to the deck, actually, for this, and then realized, of course, they were at Greysolon. But, you know, in the most beautiful gathering space that we have that has a rich and storied history, just like each of you and the important work that you're doing. My special thanks to our Duluth team, and many of them are here over at this table, maybe sprinkled in. I love being able to work with you. I'm so honored to be on the same team, and thanks for everything that you do. A couple of things I want to share. First of all, my deep and sincere thanks to the SHPO team and to Commissioner, because it is true, the work that we are doing together, it is complicated and very important. And every time we have had a project that's important, we always have some things we have to work through. And every time I have called on SHPO and the Department of Administration to have a conversation to better understand or to advocate, they have been there and been deeply engaged in that conversation. That means a lot to me as a mayor and as a leader. So thank you to those of you who are on the professional team. Your work and your credential and your understanding of communities and preservation
is really valued and important. While you are here, I'm so happy to hear some of the language today around diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are a couple of things that I really want to encourage you to get out and see. Just last night, there was a community dedication of the Chief Buffalo mural, which is just across the street and along the lake walk. What we are working really hard to do here in the city of Duluth is to tell an accurate story of our history and heritage. We do that in part through buildings, we do that in part through visioning who we're going to be moving forward, and we do that in part through telling an accurate and complete story. We don't get it perfect, we don't get it right every time, but we're working real hard. And so that mural has a very deep and rich story that you can find all over the interwebs and the Googles. But I would just encourage you to go see it because it's in a park called Pichia King that has been renamed with this community to be the full story of the park. And the Great Heart is what that translates to. So it's the Park of the Great Heart, and it's important to us. The other site is just a block and a half away, and it's the Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial. It's a lynching memorial. It's on the registry of national, it's on the national registry. But again, what we're seeking to do here is to tell a fully representative story of who this community has been, because that's the only way we get to tell a beautiful story of how we move forward. So my work prior to being mayor, I was a social worker, and I share that because the work previous to being a policy person was really based on telling the story and preserving and sustaining people. So moving from that vision and value of how do we preserve people and take care of one another translates very well into how do we do that with space, how we do that with physical place, and how do we do that in a way that is sustaining and supportive of our sense of place. I'm also married to an architect, and so I have learned through the past 25 years the importance of space and what it means to us, what it can bring out with us, how it feels together in a space that has been built or designed with intention or preserved the same. And so I'm so excited to have you here today and this week. We're really proud of this community and really proud of the projects that we get to work on with all of you. And the vision that this community has to be inclusive and to continue to be vibrant. So please, when you go back to your communities, let people know that we are paying attention to our history and integrating that into the beautiful, vibrant future we have ahead of us. So thank you for the hard work that you do. I know you do it with heart and with commitment and with professional capacity. It is really important. It is really, really noticed. And here in Duluth, and you'll hear a couple of next speakers, we're doing everything we can and using all the layers and levers and funding mechanisms we can to support your work and to support our community. So thank you, welcome, have an awesome time. Usually I invite people to jump in the lake, but it's starting to get a little cold, so maybe just hold out on that for next summer. But with that, I would really like you to hear from our State Senator Jen McEwen. She is a leader in a variety of important issues, important to you, important to us, and I know she's paying very, very close attention to everything that relates to preservation. So with that, Senator McEwen.
Good morning. Oh, it's nice. Welcome, all of you, to Duluth. It is so good to have all of you here in our beautiful Greysolon Ballroom. You know, I would say, first of all, I would recommend jumping in the lake. Now is kind of a great time because, well, you never know, first of all. Lake Superior is always freezing cold, ice cold. You could go down there on a 90-degree day and it's ice cold, right? But it's had all summer to get a little bit warmer, so now I'm able to do that. And I love taking it in the lake. I'm State Senator Jen McEwen, and I grew up here in Duluth. And my family, on both sides, has lived in Duluth for several generations. So I grew up with a sense of, a real deep sense of place, of what this place is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And both the natural beauty of this place, which is so unique in the world, actually, and of course, our beautiful architecture and historic buildings. And as I was listening to the previous speakers, I was thinking about what it was like to grow up in this city and all of the nooks and crannies, the historic nooks and crannies throughout the city. There are lots of different places along our creeks, along old buildings, different alleys, different roads, and in all of the neighborhoods of Duluth. So I do encourage you to explore our city as much as you can. I know that probably some of you already have been doing that kind of exploring, but it's a very, very special place with very unique neighborhoods and rich histories in those neighborhoods. I recall when I was growing up here in Duluth, my dad taking me out to Skyline. It was something that our family would do sort of after dinner, sometimes we would drive out to Skyline and just look out over the city and the lake and just talk and hang out in the summertime, especially when the weather was beautiful. And I remember my dad saying to me, look out at that lake and look at this city, look at this place that we live. Can you believe this? And I really felt that deeply, and I still do feel that deeply, and I try to convey that love and appreciation of the place to my children. My dad said, you know, in your life, you're probably going to travel to many different places. I know you want to study abroad when you go to college, and I did. I studied abroad in Europe and Africa, and I've traveled widely. But my dad said, in all of your travels, in all of the cities and the places you go, the people you meet, you're going to come to see that this place right here, at the zenith of the Great Lakes, this city and this geographic place, is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And he was right. He's absolutely right. This is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And as I come into this ballroom, I was reminded of all the different times that I've been in this space, been able to live here as a citizen of this city and use this space and be in it. This beautiful ballroom with these chandeliers. This is where I had my high school prom. You know, like this is a place that really Duluthians feel. We go here for meetings and gatherings and important benchmarks in our lives. So with that, I just want to thank all of you. I know that I'm in a room full of people dedicated to preservation of our history and to integrating a full history, and people who have that really keen sense of place. And as we're moving forward into these next generations, I've had some discussions over recent days. We're seeing a lot of climate refugees coming to Duluth. We're going to have to make a lot of decisions about our space as we go forward, how we use our space, how we live in our space, what do different developments serve, who do they serve. And I'm so appreciative to have this group of people in our state working to make sure that we make those decisions wisely, thoughtfully, and with an eye toward bringing the past and realizing how it's affecting our present and then shaping the way that we want to go as we move forward. So with that, I'm just so thankful for all your work. Thank you very much for joining us here in Duluth and for having your meeting here. It's a real pleasure. Thank you. With that, I would like to introduce my dear colleague, Representative Ms. Olson.
Well, good morning. One thing is true, Duluthians love Duluth. And we can talk at great length, and you're going to get out and experience a lot of what Duluth has in terms of stories and beauty, and you started that last night. For the Duluthians in the room, you all know this, and that's why you're doing this work every day. And so I'm just really thrilled to be here, to be another person from Duluth. My name is Representative Liz Olson, and I have the privilege of representing the central and west parts of Duluth in the legislature, and to be a part of our collective work, to tell these stories, to preserve these stories, to work together, to look back at the past, but look forward. And we've heard already from our speakers this morning about the rich history that we have here, from the creeks that run into the lakes, the buildings, the varied stories of mining and indigenous people that all really come together here in Duluth, that are not just a part of our story in this region, but a part of the story of the state. And you have such important jobs to be a part of not only what's in the past, but what's yet to come. And we know we don't do that work alone, and I'm so grateful for the work the commissioner is doing with the department, with all of you at SHPO, and the professionals that you are coming up with these plans of how we move forward. And we know we have to come together to do this work, that the city of Duluth is a partner, the state legislature is a partner, and one of the ways I know that to be true is with the state historic tax preservation credit and the disappointment with the sunset. And so you have my commitment that when we go back to St. Paul and that we get a bipartisan tax agreement, that will be included, because that is an important tool. But we know that there is a cost to what we're trying to do, and no one can foot that alone. And we need to put all the tools on the table. We've talked about this is also a time to start thinking about the most pressing needs around affordable housing. We know, especially in Duluth, we're talking about that as we talk about historic preservation. So these are important things. So I remain committed, and I'm just so grateful you are all here. And I will also tell my piece about the lake. There is never a bad day to visit Lake Superior. In fact, some of the best beach days for you Duluthians, you know this, is November, when the wind is gusting and the waves are crashing. And you saw some of that last night, or in the deep cold of winter when it's ice over. So there's never a bad day, and I'm glad you started your conference here last night at Munching on a windy, cold day and see the beauty of our lake. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Your agenda looks just awesome. So enjoy it, and thank you all for your important work.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's kind of ironic to be looking at a photo from what appears to be warm Greece in the Aegean Ocean, following up on the comments about Lake Superior. That's very good. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to echo the comments that have already been made about how great it is to see people in person. I live for this conference. I breathe it pretty much every day at work, and I'm delighted to see everyone again. Some familiar faces, but also a lot of new faces, so welcome everybody. Good to have you here. I also want to kick off with the thanks, especially to the City of Duluth and my partners with the Planning Department, in particular Stephen Robertson. Stephen, do you want to raise your hand or stand up? I have said this many times, if you've been to the conference before, there's always one key person I work with to kind of pull this event together. Stephen is my go-to guy, so I tip my hat to you, my friend. And also several of Stephen's colleagues who are helping with some of the tours and other behind-the-scenes events. I won't name them, but those folks know who they are, so thanks again. So I think you all know by now that you're sitting in the world-famous ballroom at Plaza, the former Hotel Duluth. So this is where the keynote address will be during the lunch hour. We're also using the room downstairs called the Moorish Room that some of you probably saw and had coffee and water in. So those are our two primary spaces. Today we're also across the street at the Zeitgeist Arts Center, which is a really wonderful space, a nonprofit group that does events there, different cultural activities, they show movies and such, and they've been a terrific partner to work on. So it's just across the street, very easy walk. And for those of you that are movie mavens, a little bit of trivia to take home to tell your families is that the downstairs lobby space was used as one of the sets for the 1993 film Iron Will. I didn't actually remember that scene from the movie, but those of you who follow film more closely might recall. I think the fountain was covered up or it wasn't there at the time, but in any event, kind of a neat bit of trivia. So lunch will be served here, as I mentioned I think already, in the ballroom. keynote address is here. Tomorrow's lunch is a box lunch that will be served downstairs. And I think there will be enough chairs set up in the washroom. If they're not, we unfortunately don't have access to this space, so we can't come up here. There are some seats on the mezzanine level. I can't control the weather. I try to control a lot for the conference, but it's looking like it's going to rain perhaps. So I won't recommend going outside with lunch, but you can have at it as you wish. Some people are asking already about the tour of the jail later today, starting at 4 o'clock. So there's a flyer. It's a small card stock thing that we have down at the registration table. I'm not sure that it was actually out when people were signing in this morning. That the posts put together for that tour that you can pick up. It has a map that shows how to get there if you want to walk. There is going to be a shuttle bus that has a 28 passenger capacity that will be starting to do a circle route at 4 o'clock to take people up there. If you choose to walk, it's about a 15-minute walk, so not bad at all. You cannot drive there because there is no parking. And that's been stated clearly in the program for the conference multiple times, so I hope people get the message. It's a very busy street, and there isn't any parking there. The jail is also an active construction site, so the facility is going to be rented fairly soon, but it isn't done yet. They don't have their final permits. So in that sense, there are some rules that we need to abide by, meaning open-toe sandals I think are not allowed. They also do not have bathroom facilities, so plan ahead. There is also not a functioning elevator, so people that want to go up to the upper floors will have to walk on stairs, so just be mindful of that. If there are mobility issues, I apologize, but we didn't have any control over that. It's true that I think the owners and developers had planned on having the elevator done by the time of the conference, but as with a lot of things, there were delays that they had no control over. So as I said, there will be a shuttle bus starting at 4. If you don't get on the first one and you don't want to walk, just be patient. We'll come back to the hotel and take the next one. That will also return people here when the event ends at 6. It's also a large group that signed up to go inside the jail, and rest assured that there won't be large crowds going in at one time. They have it set up so it will be, I think, a 10-person maximum of folks that will be guided in by someone to lead you through the building to show you the highlights and so forth. And they're going to be enforcing that, I think, fairly strictly. But again, if you don't get on the first group of 10 going in or whatever, just be patient. They have a tent set up outside in case there are some showers, but I think we'll be fine. And the last comment about the jail is that I would be remiss if I didn't give a big shout out of thanks to Megan Elliott and her business partner John Connors, who Megan's over here. Thanks, Megan and John's at the same table. They graciously offered to let us have access and provide the light refreshments at the jail as well. So pretty exciting. And I toured the jail literally decades ago when it was a vacant building. So I'm really thrilled that this project is happening. It's great. Some other logistical items. If you are interested in the Friday morning tour of the housing rehab projects that are being featured, that's also a bus tour. That's got limited seating, 28 passengers on the mini coach. There is a sign-up sheet on a clipboard down at the registration table. As of a little while ago, I think there were about 15 people that were signed up, so there is space for that if you're interested. That's starting at 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. But there are limited seats, so if you're interested, be sure to sign up there. In your packet, there is an evaluation form for the conference, and I want to encourage folks before you leave town, please fill that out. There are check boxes for the sessions. There's also blank spaces to tell us what you really think about us and the conference. And I've said this before many times, but we do read those very carefully. We take back your suggestions and try to integrate that into the conference going forward. So let us know, what we did right and what we can do to improve the event. Let's see, the Wi-Fi for this building is Duluth, lowercase, all letters, Duluth, 1929. So if you haven't figured that out, there are little tent cards scattered about with that information. I believe the mayor already stepped away, it looks like, but I was going to make a comment that the deck is a wonderful space for conferences. The State Planning Association is actually going to be there next week. And I have been to conferences there. It's a wonderful spot. They have a great view, but I like our view better here in this space. And it may seem odd, but we do try to plan ahead, speaking of planning, to think about next year's conference. But I am happy to announce that the city of Mankato has offered to host us there in their fine city. Also in September, we don't have firm dates set yet, but keep that in mind. So for those of you in the southern half of the state, it'll be a lot closer to get there. But I'm really excited because Mankato has a terrific HPC. They haven't hosted the conference before, so a lot of good stuff going on down there. And I think that that's actually it in terms of my logistics and welcoming comments. And if I remember, I think we're actually a little bit ahead of time. We're supposed to end at 9:45, so you get more time to get a cup of coffee and figure out where you want to go for the next session. So thanks again for being here.